If you've called an agent lately to see a house and they told you, I need you to sign something before I unlock the door, you're not imagining things. And no, it's not a sales trick. It's the law of the land now for real estate. And in 2024, the National Association of Realtors settled a massive lawsuit that changed how buyers and agents work together, how commissions get paid, and what you have to sign before you ever step foot inside of a house. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what the NAR, or National Association of Realtors Settlement, is, why it happened, what a buyer's representation agreement actually says, and most importantly, what questions to ask before you sign anything. Let's get into it. Hi, I'm Connor Gray, a realtor here in the Upper Cumberland Plateau area of Tennessee, and I make these videos to pull back the curtain on real estate. No jargon, no fluff, just, what you actually need to know as a buyer or seller. This topic matters because there's a lot of confusion out there. Some buyers think that suddenly they have to pay their agent out of pocket. Some think agents are trying to trap them into a contract. Neither of these is automatically true. But you do need to understand what changed so you're not caught off guard. And we're going to cover 4 things. What the lawsuit was actually about, what changed in the industry as a result, what a buyer's representation agreement is line by line, what it means for you practically when you're ready to buy. So grab a coffee. This one's a little bit longer because it deserves the full explanation. So let's rewind. For decades, the way most home sales worked was like this. The seller's agent listed the home on the MLS, or the multiple listing service, which is basically the master database every agent pulls from. And right there in the listing, the seller's agent would state how much the compensation they were offering to whichever agent brought the buyer. This number was baked into the MLS listing for everyone to see. And a group of home sellers in Missouri filed a lawsuit arguing that this system inflated commissions. Their argument was that because the buyer's agent pay was published up front and baked into the price, there was little incentive for buyer's agents to negotiate it down, and sellers ended up footing a bigger bill than they should have. And this became known as the Sitzer-Burnett case, and it turned into a much bigger class action against the National Association of Realtors and several major brokerages. In March of 2024, NAR agreed to settle, and that settlement was for $418 million. And it came with something more consequential than the money. A set of new rules about how real estate was to be practiced going forward. Now here's something worth knowing. This wasn't the only case. Since then, other related suits have popped up, including one on the buyer's side, resolved more recently with an additional settlement. And because plaintiffs argued that the original settlement didn't address the buyer side claims, so the short version is NAR has continued working through related litigations, but the core practice changes that affect you as a buyer or seller haven't shifted since they first went into effect. So what I'm about to walk you through is the stuff that actually matters day to day. And it's been the law of the land for the real estate since August of 2024. Now, one more thing before we move on. This isn't just a Tennessee thing or your local MLS thing. This applies nationwide to every MLS and every realtor who's a member of the National Association of Realtors. So whether you're buying here on the plateau or across the country, these rules apply to you the same way. So there are really 2 big changes, and let's take a look at them one at a time. Number 1, compensation is off the MLS. Now, before the settlement, when an agent listed a home, they could advertise directly in the MLS what they were offering to pay a buyer's agent. Something like, let's use apples. 3 apples to the buyer agent. That number is no longer allowed to appear anywhere in the MLS. Not on the listing, and not in the remarks, nowhere. So here's what that does not mean. It does not mean the buyer's agent can no longer get paid by the seller. Compensation is still fully negotiable, and sellers can still offer to cover it. But that conversation just happens off the MLS now. It might happen through seller concessions, a direct conversation between the agents, or it gets negotiated into the purchase offer itself. The money doesn't disappear from the equation, it just moved out of the place where it was essentially advertised as a fixed number into a place where it is actively discussed and negotiated. Think of it like this. Before the price tag was already on the shelf, now you have to ask what it cost. And there's actually room to negotiate that price instead of everyone defaulting to whatever number was printed on the shelf. So change number 2, buyer agents need a signed agreement before touring homes. This is the one that surprises people. If a real estate agent is going to show you a home, physically walk you through it in a representative capacity, this agent is now required to have a written buyer's representation agreement in place with you first. To be clear about what does not trigger this, a casually chatting with an agent at an open house does not require a signed agreement. Attending an open house on your own doesn't require it. It's specifically when an agent is representing you and showing you homes that the paperwork needs to be signed first. And this was actually already required in some states before the settlement. Tennessee has had some form of agency disclosure requirement for a while, but the settlement made written buyer agreements a nationwide requirement tied to MLS access, which means it now applies everywhere consistently. So, particularly if you call me and say, hey, can you show me this house Saturday? Before we walk in the door, I'm going to walk you through a buyer's representation agreement, explain it, and get it signed. That's not me being pushy. That's what's required to do to represent you. So let's talk about the buyer's representation agreement. This is the part I really want you to understand because I don't want you signing anything that you don't fully get. So let's break down what's actually in the document. Number 1, who is the agreement between? It names you, the buyer, and it names the brokerage. Not just the agent personally, but the real estate company that they work under. This matters because agency in Tennessee runs through the brokerage. Number 2, the scope of representation. This spells out what the agent is going to do for you, i.e. search for properties, schedule and accompany you on showings, help you to write and negotiate offers, coordinate inspections, and guide you through closing. This is the job description section. The term of agreement, this is the time period the agreement covers. It might be a single showing, a few weeks, or several months. This is negotiable. And if you're not sure you want to commit to a long relationship right off of the gate, you can ask for a shorter term. Even something as narrow as just for today's showing and limited to a specific property. A good agent will work with you on this rather than pressure you into a long commitment before you've ever seen a house together. Compensation. This is the big one. The agreement has to state in plain and specific terms how much the agent will be paid and how that amount is determined. It can be a flat fee, a percentage, an hourly rate, but this has to be a clear number or a clear formula. Vague language isn't allowed anymore. Now, here's the key part. The number represents the maximum the agent can be compensated from any source for that transaction. So if your agreement says the agent's fee is 2.5 apples and the seller offers to cover 3 apples, the agent legally cannot keep that extra half an apple. It either gets adjusted down, credited back to you, or handled per your state-specific rules. Agents cannot use seller concessions to quietly collect more than what's written in your signed agreement. So who pays? This section outlines where the money is expected to come from, whether that's from the seller, built into your offer, negotiated as a seller concession, or paid directly by you. This is exactly the conversation that I mentioned earlier that used to happen automatically through the MLS and now has to happen out loud between you and your agent, and often between your agent and the listing agent. And some agreements include a section on whether any due is upfront, separate from what's collected at closing. And not every agent charges this, and it's entirely negotiable. Ask directly if there's anything due before closing. Now, most agents in this area that I know of don't do upfront fees on the buyer's side, but it's much more common for there to be some type of clause about a fee for terminating the contract because you've just given up the idea of buying a home and chose to just rent. But put yourself in the shoes of your agent. They've probably spent days, weeks, months driving around, burning gas and time, showing you 10 to 15 houses. They've scheduled everything, pulled the data, just for the hope that, you'll like something and they can get you to the closing, which is where they would typically get paid. So that's why. Um, there may also be a disclosure about agency fees as well, i.e., our agency charges X amount to process the transaction due upon closing. Exclusivity. So most agreements are exclusive, meaning you agree to work with one agent and the brokerage during the term. This protects the agent's time and effort, but it also means you should be comfortable with the agent before you sign, since you're committing to work with them specifically. Termination. This spells out exactly how either party can end the agreement early if it's not working out. And if you're not clear on this section, ask your agent to walk you through it before you sign it. A professional agent won't mind explaining this. And here's my honest take. As someone doing this every day, this document exists to protect you as much as it protects me. Before the settlement, a lot of buyers never really knew what their agent was earning or who was paying for it. Now it's spelled out in writing in plain language before you ever start touring home. And that's a good thing for buyers, even though it feels like a little bit of extra paperwork. And here's the thing. No agent worth their salt wants you to feel like you're locked in to work with them. If it's not working out, if there's a personality clash, whatever, just talk to them. 9 times out of 10, they will let you out of the contract because, they might not want to work with you either. So what does this actually mean for you? And let's make this practical. Here's what I want you to walk away knowing. You can and you should negotiate the terms. The percentage, the length of the agreement, the exclusivity, none of this is set in stone. And if something feels off, say so before you sign. Now, here's the caveat to that. Some agents, myself included, will not negotiate their rate. They believe they bring value and will work hard to represent your best interests in negotiations for that compensation. And here's the thing. If your agent is willing to drop their compensation right away, which is their money that keeps food on their family's table, how hard will they really be willing to negotiate for you concerning your money? Ask who's expected to pay it. Don't assume, ask your agent directly. Realistically, based on the homes we're looking at, who is going to cover your compensation? A good agent will give you a straight answer. 9 times out of 10, we can get the seller to cover the compensation to where you're not out of pocket with that. It's all going to depend. Each scenario is different. So you just kind of have to play it by ear. But there should be in writing what the intention is and what the repercussions are if those intentions are not met. A short trial agreement is a completely normal ask. So if you're not ready to commit to an agent for months, ask for a single showing agreement first. See how they work, then decide if you want to sign something longer. And like I said, you can do a single day, you can do one property specific, things like this, and it's not a big deal. Read the compensation section closely, and that's the number that matters most. Make sure you understand whether it's a flat fee or a percentage, and what happens if the seller offers more or less than that number. It protects you from surprise costs. Because the number is written down in advance, you should never get to the closing and discover a surprise bill from your buyer's agent. If that ever happens, that's a conversation to have immediately and a signal something went wrong and how the agreement was explained to you. All right, so none of this really changes what a good buyer's agent does for you. They're negotiating your offer, they're coordinating inspections, they're catching problems before they become expensive ones, and that value doesn't go anywhere. What changes is now it's written down and disclosed early instead of assuming. So if you're working with an agent who rushes you through this document, won't explain a section, or gets defensive when you ask a question, that's worth paying attention to. This paperwork should be a conversation, not a formality that you're pressured into signing quickly. So let's bring it all together. In 2024, a lawsuit settlement changed 2 big things in real estate. The commission offers came off the MLS. The buyer's agent now needed a signed written agreement in place with a clear, specific compensation number before showing you homes in a representative capacity. And this agreement is negotiable. It protects you from surprise costs, and it's something you should read closely and ask questions about, not just sign and move on. If you're thinking about buying here in the Upper Cumberland Plateau, I genuinely love to walk you through this agreement in person, answer every question, and make sure you feel completely confident before you ever step foot in the house together. Drop a comment below if you have any questions that you've gotten about this. I read every single one, and I'll answer you directly. And if this video helped clear things up, hit subscribe. I've got more videos coming on the buyer's consultation process, the 10-step home buying journey, and questions I ask every buyer before we start looking. So you're never walking into this process blind. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.